Hi, everyone. My name is Ian Field Stewart. I use they, them, she, her pronouns. For a visual description of me, I am a beautiful Black trans woman wearing a black tank top and a yellow cardigan. I have full curly hair that is semi-dyed red, but you can't quite tell, but you sort of can, but you know, don't talk about it. And I am set against a black backdrop, or a white backdrop. I know my colors, excuse me. So today we are here to discuss, I am here to facilitate a panel called MCC's Access and Diversity in Storytelling. And I'm really, really excited to have this conversation today. So without any more technical difficulties, let's move forward and introduce our fabulous panelists. The first panelists, if y'all can turn on your cameras, please, and unmute yourselves. Thank you so much. Oh, look at these beautiful people. I feel so blessed. Thank you all for coming today and being in the space. Why don't we start with introduction, which can be your name, pronouns, and land acknowledgement. Excuse me, I forgot my land acknowledgement and all the everything going on. I am on unceded territory of the Lenape people. As well, I would like to also, in my land acknowledgement, honor the legacy of Black folks who have also been displaced in what is current day Brooklyn. And while we are not the originators of this land, we as Black folks have been pushed out of our homes. And as part of the long history of gentrification, I wanted to acknowledge that as well. So that being said, my panelists, please introduce yourself with name, pronouns, and whatever we should know about you, as well as land acknowledgement and a visual description. And I'll stop talking. Thank you. Christine, why don't you start us off?
Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Bruno. So nice to be here with you today. I am a cis, white, petite woman with short brown hair. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am wearing, I have glasses on today with red frames. I'm wearing a blue sort of scoop necky sleeveless top with a faux black leather jacket with zippers. And I am sitting in front of my orange wall in my living room on a blue bench. I am super happy to be here with you today. I'm coming to you today from the unceded land of the Lenape people on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And I guess we'll get into sort of why we're here talking in terms of our own roles later, Eon, or should I?
No, please, by all means, share why, like how you're coming into the conversation today. And it's Ian, just so you know.
Ian, sorry, I'm so sorry. um, yes, I am an actor, a teaching artist, and a disability equity consultant, specifically for the entertainment industry and arts and culture organizations. I identify as a disabled woman, loud and proud. I specifically have a mobility disability.
Thank you so much. Jody, why don't we take it next?
I'm Jody Schoenbrunn-Carter. I use she, her pronouns. I am coming to you from Connecticut. Behind my blurred background is my outdoor office. I'm wearing a black silk shirt. I have long brown hair and I am very, very short, but you cannot tell that on Zoom. Thank goodness. And I also would like to acknowledge that I'm coming from the unceded territory of the Quinnipiac tribes in Connecticut, among many tribes in Connecticut that had this land stolen from them. And also, okay, while I'm here, I am a manager in the entertainment industry representing actors and writers. I ran nonprofit theaters. My first job in New York City was at MCC Theater as the general manager. And so it's good to be home. I work with primarily diverse LGBTQ plus actors. Even though I am a cis white Jewish girl, I was very upset working in the theater industry by how many voices I did not hear in my time when I was working there. And so when I started my company, I tried to look for the folks I hadn't seen a lot of. And I luckily have found many, many, many talented ones, including some who are here today.
Sam, why don't you take it next?
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Sam Hamashima. My pronouns are they, them. I am entering this space as a queer Japanese American zillennial writer. Come on, Gen Z, where you at? Ow, ow. And I'm in a city where hate crimes against my Asian community have risen by 342%. Despite this, I am living my life brightly, without apology, with a self-defense weapon. For a visual description, I am a masked femme person with soft features and a Cheshire cat smile. My almond eyes are accentuated with the kimchi glitter palette, now available at CVS, at the edges. I perform when I want to, but I am primarily a writer. And that's it.
And we can tell. Ate that up. Ate that up. Destiny, why don't you finish us off? Thank you so much.
Wow, I get to follow that. That was amazing. I'm really happy to be here. I'm Destiny Lilly. I'm the casting director. I am coming to you from Harlem, which is also the land of the Lenape people. I am a fabulous Black woman who's wearing like a pink shirt and a pink hoodie, feeling slightly less fabulous today because I'm a little under the weather, so forgive my froggy sounding voice. Not COVID though, at least not yet. So at least there's that. But yes, I'm really happy to be here. I'm here to talk about, the kinds of access that isn't necessarily available right now for people to make their way to the stage. And as a casting director, that's a big part of what I do is, trying at least my best to create more access for people. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you. All right, so let's jump into the conversation. The first question that we were discussing, kind of talking about, was like, what have you seen change for the better over the past 2 years? And I think that that for me feels like a very loaded question, because the past 2 years is like a hard place to say that anything has gotten better per se. So I think that what I invite with this question is what have you seen change in the past 2 years, and how do you feel about it? And I'm not gonna let anybody, I'm gonna make you jump in whenever you want to, whenever you feel moved to. So how about that?
Okay, so I was also looking at this question. I was like, oh my God, this is loaded. But so for me, I was like, I need to just get something like fact, evidence of something that has changed. And I'm really excited for Janine M. Scott to be the first director of diversity, equity, inclusion for the Broadway League ever. And I'm sure she's doing amazing work, and I just wish her all the positive energy in that role.
I think a positive change was there were people who wanted to create change. I don't know if they had the ability or the access to create that change. I think there was a lot of attempts to bring new voices to the stage, but bringing those new voices to the stage as we came out of COVID set up a lot of shows, one, to be in danger of catching COVID, as we saw happen both in the horrible winter months and even now. But I think it also set up a misrepresentation of what audiences might be there for those shows. Because I think we were doing shows that were featuring new voices when people were still scared to leave their house in some cases, let alone to go into a crowded theater, or didn't want to wear a mask. In my day-to-day work,
I would even offer, as a sorry to interrupt you, but I would even offer, as even reframing, is like the fact that those stories were brought in during a pandemic, that it took a pandemic for those stories to be relevant to tell. Because I also don't want us to fall into the idea that those stories don't have an audience. They very much do. It's just that the and which I know that we're aligned with, but I'm just saying, in terms of the positioning of when these shows are coming out, and when these shows are being given a voice is very specific. And as a result, you know, it means that our like Black and brown bodies, and mainly Black bodies, are on the front lines of this pandemic with little to no support. And so what does that actually look like?
And I think it just wasn't clearly like thought through, to be honest, what it meant for actors to go back in and audiences to go back in when they did. And even today, I think, you know, the rules that are changing now are still putting too many people at risk. And I get some people want it to be over, but it's not. I also think, you know, I will say one thing in my day-to-day life, I see a lot more actor breakdowns, and I see a lot more role descriptions that are more inclusive. But, you know, it's also a little difficult because, quite frankly, even though I appreciate the language, you know, when you're working on the roles, sometimes the intent actually isn't there. It's just the languages. And it makes it a little bit difficult. You know, if you're not going to change the script's pronouns, you know, then why place it as it could be a non-binary actor? You know, it's, and I think there's also been an intention to sort of really over-identify some characters, where it's like the character, they give this very specific description. So of course, an actor who is thoughtful is like, well, wait, I'm actually not a, you know, Korean American actor. And then, but the role might actually really not necessarily. And so I think it's creating a lot of confusion versus necessarily improvements.
I think these conversations are way more nuanced than the industry is allowing for. Way more nuanced. Because everything that's been said so far is so true. And I feel like, you know, I represent the disability community, which rarely comes up even in the conversation. Speaking to what you were saying, Jody, about, you know, the language. Yeah, well, in my community, the language isn't even right most of the time, let alone the horrible narratives and tropes that all of our communities have had to deal with, right? And a lot of times we don't even get to play ourselves. I do see it changing.
If I may also pause you just one quick second, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I just want to also name that I think that it's also important that we never act as if there is competition between those different various identities, because there are many folks who both like, you know, who like are looking, who may like see like changes in their pronouns, yet are not seeing any changes towards like all of these communities are intersecting, and therefore there isn't sort of like a competition, but an awareness of the fact that it's like, how are we each being misrepresented?
Well,
and
that was my next.
rather than creating sort of that like sort of a hierarchy of oppression, or sort of a race between our various movements, we can understand that there are people who are equally affected by many, many different communities, and wherever they are seemingly placed in any ladder or race. So I just wanted to like drop that in there as you were talking. Go
right. I was just, you stopped me just as I was about to talk about intersectionality, because often when I speak, I talk about intersectionality because disability is one of the few communities that anyone can join at any time. So that means it's truly intersectional across race, across ethnicity, across gender identity, across all communities. And I feel like what's happening in the industry at large for all marginalized communities is that people are understanding that these stories need to be told, but I feel like there is in a lot of cases, a lack of thoughtfulness, which I think Jody was speaking to. And while I see change happening, and I'm glad for it to change, I'm longing for more thoughtfulness as we go forward.
I mean, I think something that is slowly changing for the better is something that I think a lot of us have realized for a long time, is that we can't just make change like on the stage. We have to make change behind the stage, you know, like it needs to be like the writers, the directors, the producers, the people who have the ability to get a project like greenlit or to get a project like to the stage. It's not just reflected in performers. And I think that sometimes, you know, the focus is on performers, which is great. Of course, I want like more opportunities for performers. Like that's a big part of what I do. But also I found that sometimes in a rush to like diversify, the people making the decisions about those roles don't know what they're talking about and are actually, you know, sometimes creating harm by trying to be inclusive in a really like ignorant way that then actually backfires. So it's like, how do we, it's like we want to encourage people to tell different stories, but it's also like sometimes the way that people want to do it is actually, you know, disrespectful to that community or is not really embracing that, embracing like the true stories of people from that community. So how do we work with like an industry that still is going to be, you know, for a while at least, predominantly a lot of like, you know, white cis hetero men who have like a certain way of looking at things sometimes. Like, how do we move that industry toward authentic representation and not just something that starts to feel like tokenism? But yeah, but I do think that I mean, I'm an optimist, so I do think that there are people with good intentions and that there are smart people who are working to, you know, create more opportunities and to like actually hear stories told by people from the communities they're trying to represent and not just, you know, have like one person on the, you know, be like a sidekick or whatever, because that's another kind of trope of like, you know, not centering the stories of people who have always not been centered. But yeah, but I'm a relatively optimistic person, so I'm hoping that, you know, having like conversations like this can help propel us forward.
Well, speaking of optimism, I can think of no better person to direct this next question to than Sam. And so I was hoping that you could, Destiny, I'm so sorry, I'm gonna have to paraphrase the question that you asked, but you were talking about like this, you were speaking so beautifully about the necessary changes that have to be made and and like sort of how the people in charge and what the question you here's what you asked. I think I just found it. I need to like walk down the road with you real quick. But you had said, what do we do while the industry is run by the people that it's run by? How do we like create? How do we serve? How do we thrive? It's kind of what I'm extrapolating from that. Does that feel accurate? And so I'm gonna actually take this to our resident Zier and see what for you, Sam, is the way that we start to do this.
I mean, it's already started. So like, you can find your resources or not. Like I feel like that's sort of just like when I was called for this panel, you know, for me, I was like, okay, so like what theater are we talking about? Like the theater that is inclusive and accessible, I'm already going to. So like, that's no disrespect to anybody, but like for me, I think we need to really think about what system we're working in versus what system we're creating for other people. You know, you look at these musicals that are on like TikTok and stuff, and like there are some people who are like, this is so disrespectful. What?
The things we're creating as that was it. Sorry, keep going. But I just had to pull that out. That gem.
Yeah.
Keep going.
No, I mean, like for me, it's like, okay, well, do you want to go see Pamela Anderson in Chicago, or do you want to see TikTok artists make something amazing? And like, I'm sorry if you're mad about it, but like, you're probably older than me, and I'll probably take over. You know, so like, you can either kind of get with it or not. Go on social media, and like, I could get a whole list of resources, but it's already out there. So I don't really feel the need to do that. You know, go to Rattlestick Playwrights, go to National Queer Theater. There's Fringe theater happening and off Broadway, and like, you know, the disability theater. Like there's so many incredible places and havens for people that are searching for that. And so like, you know, if the restaurant you're in isn't offering the food you want, like maybe you need to go to a different restaurant.
I agree with
that. At that.
I know I can't disagree, but I do think there is a place, and I actually think it goes a little bit earlier into the education system. I think that, so many young people come in, and their first exposure is in a school musical. I mean, that's usually it is in a school musical. And let's be honest, a lot of those school musicals are a lot of the older shows. They're not, because that's what's affordable for a lot of schools. And, I think about, look, I was a kid in Michigan and Texas, and I didn't know my job that I currently have even existed. And I think that, that's one thing where I will say social media has done a great job, because, it might be the only decent thing that reality TV has done, is that some people actually know what agents are or casting directors are. But, I think it's even in the, I meet a lot of kids straight out of college, and they don't even know that. And they're going to good schools. And so, and I think about it, I look around and, like, in the positions of, decision makers, how many people can come out of school, figure out 3 to 5 years later that a job even exists that they might be perfect for. And then what are they going to do at 26 or 27, start interning, for no pay in New York City? So I think there's got to be a better way to sort of get the academic forces to also sort of catch up. Because and this is no offense to anyone who's teaching, my whole family is teachers, but, when people are coming out of colleges that are reputable programs and they don't know the difference between a casting director, a manager, and an agent, and who actually really makes decisions, or what a producer actually does in each of the fields, how could they even know that might be the perfect job for them and they could be our future?
There's a really interesting thread that, like, I recognize in both what you and Sam just shared. And I feel like they're very linked together. I just want to kind of pull that out a little bit, which is that I think what Sam is kind of talking about is the reaction to living within the system, right? To, like, understanding like a theater that I really recognize and resonate with and love and fight for and cherish, which is a theater that comes out of necessity, comes out of, like, an awareness that it's like, it just has to happen. Theater that, like, it will happen anywhere it goes. There's just too much of a love, too much of a passion, too much, like, for me, that is, like, what true theater is. That's, like, what makes me go and, like, fight for what I love. And what you're talking about, Jody, right now is within education systems, right? Is understanding that this is, like, where I was trained, where it was like I learned and things were implemented into me, and it became about all of these rules.
Yeah.
And I feel like the way I'm bringing this into this full conversation right now is that I feel like this is the ultimate question that I think Destiny has put to us, is how do we exist within this system that Jody speaks of, where, these shifts have to start occurring. We have to start getting not just, like, teachers, but institutions that change and people that change. How do we live within that? And then Sam gives us this lovely kind of antidote and response to it that is, I have to exist. I must make theater. It must happen. And so I will do it wherever I can for however much I can and for however long I can. And then for me, where those two things link, and my kind of big question that comes out of that is, okay, so how do we sustain that? How do we make these changes sustainable? Because the reality is that as you get older and older, and, you become wiser and wiser, and taxes become higher and higher, and capitalism continues to capitalism, and you continue to see, like, this work that feels, to be frank, hollow, get put onto every stage for every price, and everyone's paying for it. So then how do you then like, reconcile those two things? Because that what you're making is so special and so important, yet there's only so long that you can continue to, like, yell at a wall. And I hope that's not too big an extrapolation, but that's how these two things are linking for me and emerging for me. And I want to put that to our lovely panel today. Destiny and Christine, we haven't heard from y'all in a little bit, so if you feel moved, please do so. But also, if you're still blooming and resonating or coughing or whatever it is that's going on, please do that. But I just wanted to throw it to you too, if you had something to add.
I think you're on mute.
I am sorry. I feel like feeding the pipeline is really, really important, and that it's something that we don't talk about a lot. And it goes to Sam and Jody's points about our education system. You know, in places other than big cities, the population of students studying theater is not diverse, pretty much at all. I've been all over the country speaking to students, to faculty, and the faculty themselves are usually not all that diverse and very sort of have a set way of teaching, either because they've been educators for a long time, or it's because their institution, that's the protocol of their institution. And I feel like the only, not the only, but one of the main ways that we're going to create sustainable change, to what Sam is speaking to and Destiny is speaking to, is if the educational pipeline changes, and not just like our, you know, like accredited institutions, even like classes, anything, any place where anyone can study whatever it is, their whatever craft they're interested in, whether it's acting or directing or production. It's the view of the industry and of who's allowed to be in the industry and who's allowed to tell stories has to expand beyond the recognition that we need to expand. We actually have to do it and make it sustainable, not just like one and done. What I find a lot is like you'll get somebody come into an institution, whether it's educational or a theater company, who is committed to change, to equity for everyone, and then they leave, and then that initiative dies with them when they leave the institution. So that's sort of what I think about a lot, is how do we make this, the changes that we are making, sustainable for these institutions when that person who spearheads that movement leaves. It has to, the movement has to not just sit with that person.
I think it's, you know, you don't break, I mean, the system needs to be broken down. And unfortunately, yes, the capitalism doesn't stop. So you know, I can't help but think about all the donations that were collected at all the nonprofit theaters across the country over the last 2 years during COVID. And yes, a lot of folks started commissioning programs. A lot of folks, like they did Zoom readings, they did stuff, but for the theater that has to happen, that Sam is talking about, you know, the system has to be broken so that the money gets to those artists. Because yes, it will happen, Ian, you're absolutely right, it will happen, but more people need to be seeing that theater. You know, it's, and again, this is not disrespectful to any show out there, but, you know, just taking a show and changing the casting on it, and not, or changing a few words in a play or a musical, and I'm putting on my sort of my old general manager's hat, not my manager's hat, but just adjusting a script so that you can do a new interpretation of it. Why not just find a writer who needs to be heard, who's new and fresh and Gen Z or Gen Y? I mean, like, let's like bring on the kids, because they're gonna save the world if we give them the money and the resources to do it. You know, it's just, it's about, you know, if I mean, I remember those days, the funders aren't educated about it. They don't, because they've got jobs, and it's very, it's, you know, if you're being asked, you know, someone says, give money to your local theater, you usually write a check to whichever one has got the name recognition, you know, and if you just want to support theater in general. And so, you know, it's about finding a way to lift up those voices that Sam and you are talking about, and getting them some money so that they get some audiences, and they can make change actually happen.
I think jumping off of, I just want to like respond, because Jody, you mentioned like, you know, shaking up the casting for shows, you know, to attract people, right? And it's like, I'm like, I am here for abundance. I am not here for a scarcity mindset for theater. We have so much theater happening in this country. New York is not the center of the world, really. Like, we're doing theater's gonna theater wherever theater's theatering, right? And like, maybe that's like at the bar I go to at 2 a.m. on Fridays. You know, it's like, I don't know, but it's happening. And so like, I can go see Diana the Musical twice. I did see it twice because I had to see it twice to believe it. And because it was gorge, those songs were bops. But then I can also go see Thoughts of a Colored Man, or I can go see like two colored girls who may have committed suicide, or, you know, like, there's theater out there for all of these things. And so like, you know, thinking about it, it's like, do we have to have this binary of like, it can only be social justice theater, it can only be theater with like a profound purpose, and like, I must leave with my life changed? Or like, can it also be theater where like, oh, like, the world's ending, student death's not getting canceled, women's rights are like getting like thrown into the gutter, like, and I can escape for 2 hours, you know? And like, there's that duality that like my mom keeps telling me about, because for me, I'm like, why am I writing anymore? Like, I need to go get a job in like finance. Like, I can't afford, my generation cannot afford houses. So it's like, when that is my reality, like, these conversations are great, but like, how am I going to live and have a retirement?
I'll just add to that 150% co-sign to all that, Sam, and just add that there are other generations that are also in that same spot. I am not of your generation, but I am right there. I will never afford a house. I have a huge student loan debt over them that's been hanging over my head for decades. You know, and I think, yes, feed the pipeline with Gen Ys, Gen Z, definitely, because those are the voices of the future. But there are also a lot of other voices who have traditionally not been allowed to be heard, as we know, because that's, you know, what we're talking about is who's allowed to be heard. And I think if we could find a way to lift up those voices too, that might not be of the youngest generations, because those voices have a lot to say and a lot to contribute to, and they have traditionally not been able to.
Destiny, was there anything you want to add?
I just wanted to add, like, you know, it's really complicated. You know, I was at a reading not long ago for a play that I cast, which is at like a, you know, an off Broadway theater eventually, you know, as a reading. And, you know, the cast was, you know, mostly people of color, and almost everyone else in the room other than me was a white person. The people who worked at the theater, the decision makers, the potential commercial producers that were there, like, so it's still something where, like, even if we're providing opportunities for you know, younger people and people of color to make theater, it's still like it's still the people making decisions are still the same, which is something that I you know, and I want people to be able to get paid. Like, I'm all for, you know, doing like, you know, theater wherever and whenever, but I also want artists to be able to get paid so they can buy a house one day, Sam, you know, or so they can, you know, I think people should be able to work as artists and be, you know, able to buy a house one day and to have children if they so choose, and all those things. So I very much believe in artists getting paid, but it's complicated because it's like, it still seems like that those who hold the purse strings are still the same, as much as, you know, there might have been some changes in terms of who's writing the stories or who's acting in the stories. The decision makers at that place still seem to be the same, which I don't quite know yet how to change.
I think it's interesting because I think I'm gonna, you know, understanding the context of our time here together right now is at MCC, and this conversation is inspired by the play Which Way to the Stage, which talks about, you know, two friends who love theater and are in this pursuit, who have the passion. And it's I think that Which Way to the Stage really like begins a conversation that I think is rooted in what we're talking about today, with the folks that we're talking about today, understanding, you know, and I think that it's important to name that, like, you know, part of my experience in seeing the show is that it's like, I am seeing, you know, two white folks who are having a conversation about their accessibility to the theater, and recognizing that I myself am not granted even I don't have a fourth of the access that you talk about. And I think that's important to name. And so I think that it's exciting to like have a panel like this, because I think that having the panel within the conversation, within the context of this show that we're talking about, is sort of within itself like a commentary on what it can be like to see the show, as well as what it is like for the people in the show who are looking at their own version, right? So it kind of feels like it's like this panel is like looking at the show that's looking at itself. And so this is a very, we might even call it a strange loop. See what I did there? See what I did there? Full references, theater references. Come on, theater nerds, work with me.
Mind here. Yeah. I do think, Ian, the thing that's interesting, I've had the opportunity to see the show, Which Way to the Stage. The thing that's interesting about it is that, and I think the play is aware of this, that what prevents those two characters from getting to the stage is themselves, like they're standing in their own way. And I don't think that it's about like, oh, you know, these actual barriers, you know, that stand in the way of like, you know, performers with disabilities, or, you know, trans performers or other performers that have been marginalized, like very purposefully in the theater. But it's also kind of ironic and strange loop in the way that it's like, but they are on a stage right now. So
right. That dissonance. Thank you so much for bringing that to a much sharper clarity. I think that is exactly correct. But yeah, you know, I had to make sure that we worked the show in so we could talk about it a little bit. Thinking of this, I think I'm pretty sure we're heading towards the end of time. I think we started a little bit late. So if any audience members are staying a little bit longer with us, if we have more time, I can make, baby, ain't no problem with this group. We can talk, all right? And that's what I love. But I'm just gonna ask this lovely question. I think I can also open up to questions from the audience. So I'll see if that's a thing. But right now, I'm just gonna say to you all, in thinking about, can we just hear from you? Why do you love the theater today in 2022? Why do you love the theater? I want all of you to answer it. So Sam, I'm making you start now. It's happening.
Okay.
It's happening.
So I've actually been thinking about this because I'm on commission right now with a theater, and I'm writing. Like, I'm actively getting paid to write, and it's paying my rent. And I'm like, what do we need right now, right? And what do I love about theater, obviously? And I was looking through my journals, right? And I found an entry of mine from when I was in like a very deep, sad place. And it was about, you know, why I'm writing. And, you know, it's all of it. Theater makes the world less lonely. And that's why I write. Above everything else, it's to make the world a less lonely place. And that's why I love theater.
I still go for that moment, like when the words and the actor saying them hit you in the stomach. It's that moment where you just feel the connection. It doesn't matter whether I'm laughing, you know, at you know, last night's show, you know, or saw Bedwetter last night and was laughing like crazy. You know, saw the minutes, and the whole way home we discussed how, you know, how gut punched we were about who we are and where we stand in the world, you know. But it's that moment where, you know, the words come out of the actor's mouth and they hit you right in the stomach. There's just no other medium that does that except the live stage.
Yeah, for me, I think
Christine, I'm so sorry. I'm going to pause you. Destiny was going to speak, so I'm going to throw to Destiny and then go to you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was just going to say there's something about the unexpected, the fact that like if I go see a play, there's always that potential for me to be like surprised, to have this live art form. And sometimes it can be that somebody forgets their lines, you know, sometimes you've had that happen, but that doesn't happen in a movie or on a TV show or whatever. There's something of that electric feeling of like the whole audience experiencing this thing at once and experiencing this thing that no one will ever experience quite the same way again, that I find very special. And it's something that like, and from many years ago when I used to perform, there's also something really exciting about being a performer and sharing with the audience in that direction as well, you know. And there's that shared experience that you don't get in other like art forms that I find really exciting. And I like to be someone who's like, yes, I'm here with you in the audience, like we're doing this thing together. So I still go to the theater a lot. But it's also kind of like, in some ways, it's kind of like kissing frogs or whatever, because you're like, this next show is going to be the one that reminds me why I love theater so much and why I like dedicated my life to it. And it happens like once a year or so, something so special that I'm like, this is why I do this. Yeah.
I love that.
I won't repeat what everyone said, because what everybody said are all the reasons that I love theater and I make theater. But I also find such joy. I get such joy out of personally making theater with others and our shared humanity. But I also get such joy in seeing everyone else's joy, my fellow artists, the audience, just the fact that even if it's like a heavy, depressing piece of theater, there's still a degree of joy in it, that we actually get to make this thing that is moving people, that is shifting molecules in the air, in the room with us. And I really love that. And just to speak to what Destiny said, I actually love going to, well, I don't know if love is the right word, but I appreciate going and seeing bad theater, because it opens up my mind. I am the person who like goes to the theater and 2 hours later I'll be, you know, with my friends, colleagues, whoever I've been with for the evening, and we'll go and we'll talk about something for 2 hours. It's really painful when you've seen something and you can't find much to talk about afterward. Those are the moments that pain me, when you've seen something that it's so beyond the pale that there's nothing to talk about.
Thank you so much for that. I have a question I'm going to ask, but before I do, I wanted to answer my own question, because as you all were talking, like something just like hit me in the chest that like I didn't quite realize, which I will be performing for the first time in 2 years this summer. For the first time, I'll be back on a stage, and there are two memories that like I've always like kept with me as like the grounding forces behind like why I love theater, because I've lost that answer many times over the past 2 years. And the first one is the moment before your entrance, like when it's like, you know, that it's like, okay, I have a very interesting relationship with time. And so like that moment right when I'm like, I have to step on stage, whether I know my lines or not, if I feel like I'm, you know, it's like, it is time, and like the character, and just as you step on, the character like walks right in with you. That moment right before is like what I'm so excited to feel again. And then the blue light backstage. That has been a memory that like has always just like sat with me, that like takes me back to childhood, to every single show, is like the blue light backstage, and just like the comfort of knowing that like art is happening. And so thank you all for like just like giving me that like feeling again, and like knowing that it's going to be back. So thank you. I would cry if I let people see me like that, but know that it's happening inside. There are many tears of joy. So we also wanted to make sure that we leave people with some, you know, the girls want the tips, they want the how-tos, all the things like that. So we just wanted to ask, you know, what are a few tips or best practices, if people haven't already gotten them for what we've been talking about, but what are some best, like, you know, tips and best practices for how folks can advocate for themselves or clients before they get into the room? I can give a little bit of a start, and then I'm going to throw it to Jody because I know we've had this conversation many times.
I can jump in if you
Thank you,
want.
my love. All right, bet. I was like, Jody, like,
Okay.
come on
No,
now.
I got plenty to say. I mean, I think the first thing is, I think a lot of actors allow themselves to be disempowered by the system that says you shouldn't get paid, you don't have to get paid. I think that a lot of actors allow themselves, you know, to get disempowered by the stupidest concept in the world that like everyone has to pay dues. You know, I mean, I think that comes from, you know, I think you know, when, and I know that's a lot of a generational thing of like, you know, I paid my dues, you have to pay yours. No. And so I think that's the first thing, is to truly refuse to be disempowered. I think that a lot of the systems in the entertainment industry and in theater are set up that way. I mean, theater's a little cliquey. I mean, it is. It's a little cliquey, like, okay, it's a lot cliquey. You know, it's really, you know, I mean, the same people, you know, I'm a little bit older than I look, and the same people who, you know, were running things, to Destiny's point, when I got to New York, are still running them. So, you know, I think there's a little bit of like, you know, there's got to be a lot of, you can't just agree to that. I think for actors and for writers in particular, you know, I think there's, you know, and it applies to directors and designers. Yes, find your people, find a way to get it done, let that theater come out. Yes, invite people, don't give up when they can't make it, because yes, people have busy schedules. But I think it's also really vitally important right now, especially for young actors, to not just assume because something says something on a page or in a breakdown that it's correct or it's what it has to be. You know, I find, you know, and present company excluded, because present company writes great breakdowns. You know, I find that sometimes you'll get a breakdown or you'll read something in a script and it's like, you know, oh, it says this person is, you know, this, and this, and this, and this. And oh, I'm not most of those things, so I can't audition. And then, you know, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Because when I read it, it seemed like all that really mattered was that they were from, you know, Missouri. You know, it didn't really matter all that other stuff. So let's check with casting and see if anything matters other than Missouri, you know, or Texas or whatever accent like they actually need you to do. And I think that's sometimes, especially because so many actors are thoughtful and so many actors are being intentional. Don't let your own thoughtfulness and your own intention stop you from auditioning for something. Let your representative push back to the casting director, or let them just send in your tape, because in the end, they saw your photo when we submitted you. And they still sent you a tape request. Well, I was going to say an appointment, but we don't do those right now. They still sent you a tape request. You know, they know. So don't talk now. And yes, you know, for all the folks out there who are the powers that be, you know, don't make us have to ask for key changes. Don't make us have to ask for a script, you know, for our clients to be gendered properly. Don't ask for us, you know, if you know, and don't, you know, if you make a mistake, you know, a very wise person once told me, I'm really good at saying what I don't know. You know, if you make a mistake, own up to it. If you make the mistake in the email, just say you're sorry and, you know, and move on. But, you know, it's not, this is not a time for anyone to exclude themselves. If it's something you want to do, if you read it and you're into it, don't let something that's on the page stop you. Let's try and convince the powers that be of other things. And hopefully the powers will actually also then start, once those folks are being seen and being heard, we'll start realizing there's absolutely, unquestionably, there is an audience for it. There's an audience. There's not only an audience, there's an audience that needs and wants it. You know, I was saying this earlier today at another event. I remember being at MCC, my second year there as a general manager. We did a show called Angelique. And I remember one of the actors pointing out to me, I said, out of curiosity, why'd you sort of like take this break and do this show? Like, why'd you do this show? Because it was pretty, there was some dark subject matter. And the actor said to me, Jody, it's the only show with an all Black cast in New York right now. And, and I mean, I knew that, but it's like, that was, it was a while ago, but it's not, there's an audience. There are people there. People want to hear these voices. People want to see these people. People want to see everyone. And if we want to actually, I don't care if you're progressive or you're moderate, wherever you fall on the spectrum, we have kids out there who need to see people who look like them, people who are dealing with the same issues as them, people who are from every single walk of life, because there's a lot of kids who don't have that at home. And I think for me, the theater saved me as a kid. And, there's a lot of people, most people I know that's the case. So, I would ask everyone in power to remember that if theater saved you as a kid, there's a lot of kids out there that need saving.
I love that. Thank you so much. Christine, I think you were going to say something.
I was just going to say that I think it's really important for actors to be their own self-advocates, to know what their rights are as actors, to know, because a lot of actors don't know when they go into a room the things that they're allowed to be asked versus the things they are not allowed to be asked by law, and they just open up and answer questions that they are not required to answer and make some actors uncomfortable. And I think, a lot of actors don't know how to empower themselves in that way. And I'll just speak for myself, give away a lot of emotional labor. Especially if you have intersecting identities and you're in a room with people who are not of whatever that identity is, you're often expected to educate the other people in the room. And I think that becomes really taxing for artists, because sometimes we just want to go into the room and show up and do our work, the work that we were actually hired to do, not the other work, which is more of a consultant role. So if you want me to play consultant, pay me for that as well as my acting skills, right? And I think a lot of the times actors, not just young actors, but a lot of actors are so, because we love theater so much and because we love what we do so much, we're so hungry to work that we just accept whatever is asked of us, even if it's not fair, like asking us to wear multiple hats for one salary or no salary.
I wanted to respond really fast to what Christine was saying about basically having these boundaries set up, right, in the room, and being expecting people to respect those boundaries, right? And as someone who like recently went through like a BFA program, and we talk about generosity in the room as this thing that like we must have in order to be castable or in order to be good to work with. And this usually falls into like anxiety-ridden fever dreams for the marginalized people in the room, right? Because it's like, how can I be generous while also advocating for myself? And I don't have the answer to that, but Christine, it made me think about sort of that expectation of generosity that we have in our industry. And I don't know the solution to that, but
I feel like generosity should work both ways. And I've been in situations where it does work both ways, or always, let's say always. And those are obviously the most satisfying experiences, but they're few and far between. I also feel like if people are looking for representation, and this speaks to Jody's point, you want to look for representation who's excited to work for you and work with you and gets you as a human being. And I feel like so often young actors especially, you say, oh, someone wants to work with me, but they don't get you at all. So I feel like it's a really important tool for actors to do your homework. Just like you would do your homework finding a headshot photographer, somebody who gets you, and same thing with an agent or manager.
I just want to say, one, I really agree with everything that's been said already, but also to the point that Jody made, I think it's important for actors not to close the door on themselves. Sometimes it's like, oh, they're not going to want me. They're not looking for me. Like actors will get in their own heads thinking, oh, I've seen that show done before, and the way it's been done before, I wouldn't be right for it. So they like sometimes they will create their own barriers that aren't even there, because it's like, if I called you in, it's because I want to see you. Like, this isn't, your grandma's version of whatever show it is, and I do want to see you. So if we called you in, it's because we want to see you. So don't get in your head about, because I know it's really hard for actors because there's so much to get in your head about, but don't get in your head about like, oh no, they don't really want to see me, or they don't really want to work with me, because that's not the case. Because we'll call you in because we're interested in seeing you, and because we're interested in seeing what you do, what you bring to this material. Obviously we're not looking to do it the same way that's always been done. If we're bringing in someone who's like very different than like, the traditional way something's been done. So like embrace that and bring yourself to it. I think that there was this thinking for years, especially in like a lot of schools and like BFA and MFA programs, that actors needed to kind of sand down their edges and the things that made them unique. And I'm happy to say that I think the opposite is true now, or people see it different. It's the opposite. Like, you don't want to take the things that make you special and try to like make them more cookie cutter. You want to like show me the things that make you you, because that is what is going to get you cast in something, or that is what is going to start the conversation where you meet like an exciting writer or director or producer or someone who wants to work with you. It's not about trying to, dim your light to fit into some like, and that definitely was what people were being taught for years. And like, that really sucks that people were being taught that, because it's terrible. But it's the opposite. Like, I want to see who you are and what you bring and what your shining light is, and how that can be part of this storytelling, and not like, oh, let me like see if I could like fit this person into something else. It's like, no, like, you're exciting. And I think, like the thing Jody was saying as well, with like some breakdowns, like we try to keep them relatively open. So it's something where we can just find the right person and then shift the background of that character to fit the person, So it's not something where, especially if it's not super important to the storytelling, it's like, okay, great. Well, we found this great person. They can't do that Texas accent, so let's just have them do this California accent or whatever, because it's not really important to the storytelling. But for me, the thing that I find the most exciting is that when people of all backgrounds get to tell stories that aren't like about that thing. So it's not like, oh, I am a performer with a disability and this has to be a story about disability. It's like, it could be a story about ice cream. You have an ice cream truck, who knows? Anything, it could be a story about anything. And I think that, as we build more stories that are just like stories about anything, that are like obviously infused with the fact that we have performers of different backgrounds, but like doesn't have, I'm always excited to see all different types of people, but I feel like the true victory is when it's like, it's not like about that,
I will take that. So with that, I just want to always remind folks in our Zoom audience and anyone who may be viewing this later, a reminder that, when we talk about anything to do with access and diversity, especially in storytelling, the only way that any of this conversation is ever effective is if it turns into action, and you have to be a part of that action. So please, recognize that this is always a call to that action. a call to find your way to the stage, you know, to make sure we're bringing in the theme, making sure that, you know, that all of us are just remembering that there is an immense amount of work that goes into this, that goes way beyond what we actually get to see, but that happens within ourselves, that happens within our institutions, and that happens within the rooms that we are able to create. So thank you all for being here so much today. Thank you, panelists, for just being so wonderful and like bringing back that warm, fuzzy feeling that I get about theater. And while also making like, ooh, girl, yes, that's how I feel. So thank you so much. I'm truly so grateful. Thank you to MCC for creating space for this conversation, and make sure that you are also taking care of yourself, drinking lots of water, and minding your business. So yeah, everyone take care, and thank you all so much. Bye.